So for all of you who haven't realized, we've been having some trouble with this program.
Some trouble, try a lot of trouble.
Oh, honey, you should know when I say a little, I mean a lot.
True.
So, to the point, to celebrate our 1 year anniversary of doing these character reviews, which hasn't got off to a good start, we're doing a top 20 list of the dumbest complaints we've ever heard.
Yeah. As we mentioned in the video that no one will ever see.
So it was pointless to say that.
We'll be doing it in 5 complaints in 4 separate videos.
And like most top anything lists, we'll be starting from the bottom to and going into the top.
I already did. Sorry, my dad was at the door.
Oh well, he helped us fix it, so he can interrupt if he wants.
Yeah.
So, starting from number 20, hating Anastasia for being a sexist character that depends on the male characters.
And 19, hating a character because they were only added to bring in a bigger audience or update the franchise.
Number 18, claiming a character is going to promote their flaws even when they're portrayed as negative.
17, hating a character for their voice.
And 16, hating Launchpad for being a reverse snob, and we will explain what a reverse snob is later on when we get to that complaint. So, starting with number 20, hating Anastasia for being a sexist character that depends on the male characters. And yet, people don't complain that Merida constantly has to be saved by not only her mother, but her 3 little brothers.
Yeah, Merida is definitely a bigger damsel in distress than Anastasia ever was.
She was even more of a damsel in distress than any of the 3 classic Disney princesses were.
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about Merida. It seems that whenever there's a female character that has to be saved by a male, she's just automatically considered sexist because, as of course, a lot of women just want females to be the dominant gender.
Yeah, and speaking as somebody who is no fan of Anastasia, I never thought that she was sexist because she needs help from male characters occasionally. That was never something that I added to my complaints about her.
That is pretty weak, since I think both groups depend on each other. I mean, she does need them to get her 2 pairs, since she can't get anywhere because she doesn't have some kind of form of immigration called exit visa. No exit visa, no tickets. And they depend on her because, of course, she looks like Anastasia, closer to any of the women that they saw, mainly because, of course, she is Anastasia.
A lot more like Anastasia than that one girl they had. Grandma, it's me, Anastasia.
Looked like one of Cruella's distant cousins.
Yeah.
And Anastasia, in my opinion, is still a strong female character, even if she does need help, because she definitely doesn't let people talk bad about her, like that woman at the orphanage who told her she was a nameless no account, which is why I think she deserved getting mocked. and how she does, and one of the reasons, sort of like a minor reason I love Anastasia, is because she is mean to Dimitri. Not a main reason I love her, but usually if a character is mean to someone that I don't like, then I'll like them that's a minor reason I'll like them.
Yeah, he definitely deserved all of the stuff she did to him.
Too bad she had to save him in that train. and that brings up a point at how she definitely doesn't just depend on them, and they do depend on her. When they were trying to break loose from part of the train, and she used a lighter to explode it.
Yeah.
And she definitely did need them in the situation where she would end up being sleepwalking because she has a psychopath trying to kill her. If it wasn't for them, she'd probably end up.
Well, and even in the final battle, she's the one who ends up actually beating Rasputin.
Albeit in kind of an easy way, but you could probably say the same thing for Tiana and the Princess and the Frog.
Yeah.
You see this with lots of female characters, like with Kaylee, who's accused of being a damsel in distress because she has to be saved by the male characters, even though she helps them just as much.
Not to mention Webby, who's always accused of being a damsel in distress, even though the boys play it just as much, if not more, than she does.
Yeah, and she plays a hero role a lot more than they do. She's the one who should have been in the main kid on that show. Get rid of the boys. Just make it about Scrooge, Launchpad, and Webby, and throw in Goldie if you can.
Yeah.
So I think that's all we have to say for this complaint.
Yeah, I never saw her as a damsel in distress. And depending too much on male characters, that's definitely a weak and silly reason to dislike her.
Like we'll get to in another video.
And that's about all I have to say about it.
Me too. On to the number 19.
Hating a character because they were only made to bring in a bigger audience or update the franchise. And the characters that we've heard people complain about that are characters like Batgirl, who was added to the Batman franchise to bring in girls, Tiana, who was made so Disney would have an African-American princess, and Lola Bunny and Max Goof, who were made to update the Looney Tunes and the Mickey Mouse and Friends franchise.
To add a girl to the Looney Tunes. And my argument is so friggin' what?
Yeah.
I see nothing wrong with wanting to update a franchise because you have to evolve a franchise to keep it alive. I mean, look at the Muppets. I mean, for a long while, they were pretty much dead until the new movies came.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And they even mentioned that in the movie. They used their lack of success to help gain them success. Which is one of the reasons why I think the Mickey Mouse franchise, out of all the cartoon franchises, does the best job to stay alive, other than in those new shorts.
Yeah, I can't stand those.
No, other than the fact that they have been doing a decent job with Minnie and Scrooge.
Yeah, about the only positive thing I'll say about them is that I think they do a pretty good job with Minnie and Scrooge, who are my two favorite characters from the franchise.
Along with Webby.
Mm-hmm.
Although she's unfortunately not there, but hopefully the new reboot of DuckTales will help her be more popular.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's nothing wrong with updating to make it appeal to girls or to add an African American or any kind of racial minority to a group. I mean, Mulan's not even a princess, and she was at it for both popularity and for there to be an Asian in the group, and no one complains about her.
Yeah, and I mean, even Pocahontas, I guess she's arguably a princess since she's the daughter of the chief, but she's not a princess in the sense that, like, Snow White, or Cinderella is.
Yeah, basically not the type of princess who's in gowns, which is one of the reasons why she's not in as much merchandise as the others.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with adding a character to try to get girls or guys interested, or adding a racial minority, or just trying to update it.
Yeah. While the Muppets didn't do a good job with trying to add Walter into the franchise, since besides the two movies, he doesn't seem to be in anything else. He's on the new show. He's not in any other merchandise, like how Lola is with the Looney Tunes, or Max is with the Mickey Mouse franchise, or Batgirl is with Batman and Robin.
Yeah. Yeah, and Walter, I mean, he's an okay character, but he's kind of one-dimensional.
And kind of more of a tool than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do remember people just laughing their asses off just from seeing that his human form was the guy from Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, I remember that too. Also, I remember somebody saying that he was named Walter after Walt Disney.
Well, I don't know about that. Although anything's possible, I mean, apparently, that the dad slash the king from Frozen was modeled after Walt Disney.
I guess he looks kind of like him.
Yes, and or how they made Hans modeled after Hans Christian Andersen. Boy, Disney must have really had in for them. Well, I guess since it took a long time to make Frozen, and they were just trying to take a stab at Hans Christian Andersen for making it so dang difficult. But anyway, back on topic. Nothing wrong with trying to update it in a franchise or trying to make it appeal to a group, since the franchises are all about not just entertainment, but it's mainly about money. The entertainment doesn't matter as much if you're not making the money.
Yeah. Yeah, and while I will admit that there are some pretty poorly done characters that were added in an attempt to update a franchise, that doesn't mean that all of them are, by any means.
Yeah, like, I know a lot of people that are Max Goof fans, even though he does have his criticisms. It's definitely not as much as Lola's. And Lola, while she's definitely not the most well-developed character, she definitely could have been a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
Like how they did her in the new Looney Tunes show. And you all know how much I despise her in that version. and I do think they do develop her a lot in the comics to where she is a three-dimensional character. But even in Space Jam, she does have a definitive personality and can hold her own ground. I mean, unlike all the other love interests that would be for Bugs, like even Penelope Pussycat, for one, and Short was actually Bugs' love interest, and it was the only time she ever talked.
Really?
Yes. And of course there is Honey Bunny, or as I like to call her, Bugs in drag. We already have Bugs in drag. We don't need some kind of woman who looks like Bugs in drag. But she's able to hold her own ground out and does what I think someone who is Bugs' love interest should do, similar to how he doesn't just act like a love interest is for Mickey and will call him out whenever he's making the wrong choices or isn't treating her as a fair partner.
Yeah.
Like how Lola does show him up when he's calling her doll, and is making her seem like she's just a pretty face and is frail and delicate, and shows him that she is badass. She can take care of herself. She is sassy. She's witty, and And while she does show him what she's made of, she's never mean about it.
Yeah, unfortunately, most of the female characters in the Looney Tunes shorts are pretty one-dimensional love interests.
Aside from my granny, who isn't just the love interest and is funny and enjoyable, but she's not enough to keep the franchise alive with a female audience.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, you have Penelope Pussycat, and you have Witch Hazel, well, another character who is and just a love interest and is an enjoyable antagonist.
Yeah. Yeah,
And-
she and Granny are pretty much the only three-dimensional ones.
And not counting Tina Russo in the new show, which is the only thing I find enjoyable about it. And of course, there's Penelope Pussycat, and you have throwaway female characters like a Penelope Petunia Pig, and Melissa Duck, who was Daffy Duck's original love interest before Tina Russo, and a minor character, which is the Mama Bear with the three bears.
And then Honey Bunny.
Yep, who definitely never appeared in shorts, was just in comics, and they decided to dump her in Space Jam because she looked like Bugs in drag. And
But I think that's about all we have to say about that.
yeah, pretty much. Next, claiming a character is going to promote their flaws even when they're portrayed as negative. Yeah, I never got that one. Like how they're saying that Cinderella and Snow White are promoting their abuse. It was because they're taking what their stepmothers and Cinderella's stepsisters give her, even though it's shown in a negative light, unlike something like 50 Shades of Grey or Twilight.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely don't see 50 Shades of Grey, because I definitely didn't see the movie. I just read the description of the plot on Wikipedia, which was still awful, but at least I got to cut out all the horrible dialogue.
Yeah, I've read reviews of it, and I saw the commercials for the movie, and that was enough to turn me off of it.
Considering she's asexual, all that sex scenes does not appeal to her at all.
No.
And for the few of you who watch this and think that there's something going on between me and her, there isn't. Let's face it, if there were a lot of people watching, they'd be thinking that. We'd know that. There's not.
Seeing as how all of the YouTubers think that there's something going on between Nostalgia Critic and Nostalgia Chick.
Despite the fact that Doug Walker, who is a Nostalgia Critic, is married. And not to the Nostalgia Chick.
Thank goodness.
Yep, he can do better than her. And he did. But anyway, back on track. Just because someone has flaws and they're having to struggle through it all through the show or the movie, or in Cruella de Vil's case, is just the conflict in it. It's not promoting anything. I mean, there's actually been commercials saying don't smoke, and they've been using Cruella as an example.
Yeah. Yeah, I especially don't get it with a villain like Cruella.
She's not supposed to be a role model. She's trying to kill puppies for fur coats.
And even with a hero like Scrooge, where they claim that he's promoting greed, it's made pretty clear that that's not something that he's proud of.
Especially in that one episode where he gives his nephews advice on their lemonade stands and how to handle money, and he doesn't make sure they understand how to interpret it and to make sure it's not all greed.
Mm-hmm.
and when Magica Dispel Elf steals his coin and sends him to the future, and somehow a lucky dime or whatever can and change the fate of the world. But it's a but I digress. And they ended up being exaggerated versions of Scrooge.
Or the Don Rosa version of him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, take it away, Sarah.
If you know me at all, you know I despise that version of him, seeing as how I made an entire video about how I hate him.
Yeah, they were basically three Don Rosa Scrooges. Ugh.
One's bad enough.
And thankfully, we got to see what Webby would end up like. Though I hope she gets a different husband in the future. But anyway.
At least Doofus is a nice guy, unlike the nephews.
Yep, who apparently they will say Webby can't help because she's a girl, even with a lemonade stand, which is, from what I've seen, a little girl-oriented job. but Scrooge definitely regrets whenever he's letting his greed get ahead of him. And it's understandable why, if you've seen his backstory, that his first dime or a quarter or whatever, or Sarah, was a dime or a quarter?
Dime.
His first dime. Well, at least when I have DuckTales facts wrong, you can correct me. It explains why, because with his first dime, he kept on trying to get wealth because that's what his parents wanted. They wanted him to have a better life, and he wanted to make him proud, and he always had to struggle to keep his money and stay rich. And yet, even when he ended up getting money, he never felt complete. For a long time, and for years, his money was his only way of love and his only a way of family until his nephews and Webby came along.
Yeah, he was trying to use his money for a long time to fill the void.
And old habits die hard.
Yeah, and I think that making money and treasure hunting was pretty much the only enjoyment he got out of life.
And now he can enjoy it with the kids.
But yeah, it's definitely portrayed as a old habit that he's not fond of and is trying to overcome.
Yep, a long, hard process, but at least he definitely regrets any bad decisions he makes, and you're gonna make bad decisions all your life, and it sort of represents, like, for me, example, I struggle with depression, and I had to, and it's something you never cure. You just go through it every day of your life. Doesn't matter when you start getting depression, because I didn't have it when I was a little kid, and I started getting it when I was around 13, and of course, life happens, so of course there'll be a lot of things that'll make it hard on my depression, like losing a loved one or stress at school or in life and whatever, but you have to learn to deal with it. And I think that with someone like Scrooge, it's showing that you will struggle with something, but you can get through it as long as you have people in your life that love you to help you get through it.
Yeah, I think that it's realistic, and it shows that old habits die hard, and they will rear their ugly head sometimes. But and you may never completely get rid of a bad habit, but you can still get through it.
Yeah, if it's like Hey Regina on Once Upon a Time, which I sent a video that people will never see. So I was going to say that with Regina from Once Upon a Time, who is a reformed villain, but of course, being a reformed villain, she still has her bad temper, especially with her half-sister Zelena, who is the Wicked Witch of the West, and has definitely the one of the most clever evil minds in the world, considering she was able to cheat death and was able to deceive everyone, including the Dark One, into thinking she was Robin Hood's dead wife, Marion. Was able to have him get her pregnant and have the child on the show that will definitely need the most therapy. and it's definitely she definitely makes it hard for Regina to not go back to her old habits, especially when he says things to Robin like, "Oh, you miss me. I told you, once you go green, you'll never go queen." So, it's definitely something you'll have to struggle with. I mean, whether if you're a covering drug addict like, would say, Lindsay Lohan, who is thankfully doing a lot better now.
Thankfully.
And will have to struggle with her addiction all her life. Even just have to go through it one step at a time. And I think characters like Big Scrooge help you get through that, like how Cinderella, I think, represents how to deal with an asshole boss.
Yeah, I had trouble with my weight when I was a lot younger. When I was first diagnosed with epilepsy, I was put on a medication that increased my appetite and made me overeat. And since then, I tend to stress eat a lot.
And now I'm going to make her jealous by saying I have a high metabolism. Although that just means I'm a toothpick, so I can't gain any weight.
But yeah, my eating disorder will rear its head whenever I'm stressed out.
With me, it depends. Either I just won't eat or I'll just stuff my face. Depends. And I think that pretty much covers this complaint.
Yeah. 17, hating a character for their voice.
Whether if it's because it's annoying to them or if it's because they're voiced by an actor they don't like. We mainly got that complaint with the voice actor with Candace Flynn being voiced by Ashley Tisdale.
Yeah, we also got it with characters like Iago for having an annoying voice, the Keys to the Kingdom version of Aurora for not being like the original.
And Snow White for having a super high voice.
Oh, and Minnie Mouse having an annoying voice.
Yeah, I can't believe we forgot her. Shame on you. She's supposed to be your favorite female character type with Webby. Shame.
Yeah, shame on me.
So let's start with the whole voice actor thing before we get into the just annoying voice thing. People seem to just judge a character because of the voice actor, especially if it's a Disney Channel voice, like Candace Flynn being voiced by Ashley Tisdale, Penny from Bolt being voiced by Miley Cyrus.
Mm-hmm. Or even if it's just a voice actor that they dislike, like Dracula from Hotel Transylvania being voiced by Adam Sandler.
Yep, and I don't like Adam Sandler a lot at all. I pretty much dislike him because he just refuses to grow up and is pretty annoying, but I do like the character Dracula. I don't love him, but I do like him, and it's probably Adam Sandler's best acting to date, since I was not able to tell that was Adam Sandler at all.
Yeah, he does a good job on him. I personally like Dracula a lot. But yeah, I'm no Adam Sandler fan.
Nope. His fan base nowadays seems to be the fat adolescent boys, or regular size ones. have a cousin who is regular size, and he's an Adam Sandler fan, unfortunately. But moving on, even before Miley Cyrus went completely off the deep end, she still got hate. So of course, Penny definitely suffered from that blow.
Yeah, I was never a big Miley Cyrus fan. She came out a little bit after my time.
Yeah, it was definitely more my time since she's just like 2 years older than me.
But I never hated her or anything like a lot of people did, and I didn't care that she voiced Penny.
Yeah, Ben, I used to be a huge Miley Cyrus fan, but she, even during part of her crazy phase, but she's definitely gotten way too off the deep end. And for me, though I hear she's getting better now that she's back together with Liam Hemsworth, but who knows?
Well, pretty much anything could be an improvement over what she did.
Famous last words. Who knows what she'll do next? But anyway, I think she does do a great job with Penny, because when you look at the character, she doesn't really have much to her from a writing standpoint, but I do think Miley Cyrus does add some character and some depth to her with her performance.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And to one of her favorite fictional characters, Candace Flynn, being voiced by Ashley Tisdale.
Again, I was never a big Ashley Tisdale fan because she came out after my time. But I didn't care that she voiced Candace. I thought that she was pretty perfect for the role.
Yep, although I do feel bad for her vocal cords with all the screaming she does, especially with the episode with the sea monster, where she thinks she sees the sea monsters going, it's using two microphones or whatever, screaming into both of them. I can't believe there was ever a time that I hated that character. She's not only just has depth, she's also hilarious.
Yeah, she's a great character.
But yeah, I've always liked Ashley Tisdale. She's not one of my all-time favorite singers or actresses, but she is talented. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of someone like Vanessa Hudgens, who, like Ashley Tisdale, comes from High School Musical fame, but I think she's talented, great actress, gorgeous girl, who has a great voice. I think a lot of people just, unfortunately, they put too much emphasis on the voice actor and not enough on the character. One example is definitely like with John Smith voicing Mel Gibson, who ironically says a lot of racist and insensitive, horrible things. But I try to keep that away from John Smith himself, especially if the actor can give a decent performance. And there probably are actors who don't give good voice performance, but can still be likable. I mean, like, for example, I'm not a fan of Matthew Broderick, and I think he's an awful actor, but he does an okay job as Simba.
Mm-hmm.
And I find Simba to be a very likable character. I try to separate the voice actor from the actual character.
Yeah, I try to keep the voice actor separate from the character, even if it's a person that I can't stand.
Yeah, isn't Will Ferrell like a voice actor you couldn't stand, like in Megamind?
Yeah, Megamind. I like Megamind pretty well as a character, but I hate Will Ferrell.
Well, he's not as stale with his material as Adam Sandler, but but not by much.
Yeah.
Although his film Daddy's Home was decent, it just took out the hit and miss humor, in my opinion, anyway. But
Yeah, so many of Will Ferrell's movies are very childish and
yeah, basically make Frozen and look subtle in its humor,
mhm.
and that's saying something.
Yeah, just have a lot of lame childish humor in them.
Yep, and while there are characters where I dislike the voice actor and dislike the character, the voice actor isn't all there is. Like with, I hate the Kung Fu Panda films, and I hate Poe, and I'm not a fan of Jack Black at all. So he definitely doesn't help, but he's not the main reason I dislike Poe.
Yeah. I think that's about all we have to say about the voice actors.
Yeah, let's move on to just the voices being annoying. Again, I try to keep the voice is away from my judgment of the character because, well, Snow White's voice, in my opinion, and well, I wouldn't exactly call it annoying, can sometimes be a little too sweet for my a taste at times. Sort of depends on the mood, and I still think she's a good character. In fact, me and one of my friends in real life, it would actually one actually I had her go to Walmart once with her boyfriend, and I had because she loves to freak him out, and he's now her husband. So I had her just let's go, oh my gosh, and he go, what? He went, what? She said, what a cute little chair. I'm surprised he didn't expect that from her, considering that she chases chickens saying, hey, your rent's overdue.
Yeah, and like I've said before on Fan Pop and in other videos, to me, characters like Donald Duck and Iago, while I do find their voices funny, listening to them for a long period of time does get a little annoying sometimes. But that doesn't mean that I dislike the characters.
Yeah, but even with characters who have voices I find annoying and I dislike them, like Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon, which I'm not a fan of the movie itself either. The sequel, it's good but not great, but that's beside the point. And either way, I still dislike him in the sequel too. So I think he's a poorly done character, very cliche, and his voice, it does sort of add to the character being an over-the-top dork, but even and then I try to separate the voice from the actual character. Or like with Aurora, despite the fact she has more personality and keys to the kingdom, people seem to hate that she doesn't have the same opera voice she had before.
Yeah, and while I will admit that I prefer her original voice, I
Me too.
I still like the Keys to the Kingdom version a lot better.
Yep, and in and of itself, the singing voice is good, just doesn't suit Aurora, and I think the speaking voice does suit her decently well.
Yeah, I just find it kind of odd that they didn't match it very well.
Yep, like they would say Jasmine in the sequels when they couldn't get Leigh Salonga to do her singing voice, they got Liz Calloway, who was a good match.
Mm-hmm. Although Aurora's current voice isn't nearly as bad as Snow White's.
Yes, it sounds like the voice actors for Donald Duck and Minnie Mouse ended up having a love child together. Better than saying the characters did. I'll just say the voice actors did.
Yeah, it sounds like a weird mix between Minnie and Donald.
Ironic, considering I hear that Minnie Mouse's voice actor did Snow White's voice in a deleted scene for Snow White.
Yeah.
And I think that's all we have to say for this.
Yeah, I think that's about all we have to say for this one.
And to the last complaint, hanging Launchpad for being a reverse snob. And for those of you who don't know what a reverse snob is, it's basically someone who is lower class, middle class, who looks down upon people who are wealthy or have more than they do. And people seem to think that Launchpad is a reverse snob because in one episode where Scrooge is dressed up in some sort of ridiculous outfit, and Launchpad says, "Oh, he can get away with it because he's rich."
Yeah, a real minor scene.
And yet, with the minor scene where Aurora puts her nose in the air, people won't call her a snob. Even though she's not, but I'm surprised people haven't by now.
And she's way too popular, especially on FanPop, for people to call her a snob.
She's one of those characters who's both overrated and underrated at the same time.
Yeah.
But anyway, hey, back on Launchpad. That's the only time he says something that would be considered reverse snobism. Even though it was definitely not in a mean-spirited way. If it was, then he'd probably be unemployed now.
Yeah, I can't imagine him being employed by a wealthy person if he was a reverse snob.
Yeah, when I think of reverse snobs, I think of like a lot of characters in Legally Blonde, where they're looking down upon Elle Woods because she is blonde, pretty, into girly stuff, into pink, is very wealthy, and yet and they assume she got in because of her look, saying she probably slept with someone, when really, she got in on her own, unlike her boyfriend who she was trying to get back, who had to have his father pay the college to let him in. And apparently she ends up solving a murder case. And wins.
Yeah, I got the impression that it was more a more a joke than a reverse snob moment.
Yep, or like in that one episode before Jesse went downhill. And Emma has to be partnered with this girl who is of lower class who is looking down upon Emma because she's, well, basically like Elle Woods, blonde, pretty, and into girly stuff, and is rich, has a nanny and a butler, who aren't very good at their jobs.
Yeah, and that basically rigs their art project to make her look bad.
Now, thankfully, she learns her lesson and feels bad about it. Though, if it was in a later episode, she definitely wouldn't have been far off at all.
True.
Pretty much all the kids, except for Robbie, are spoiled brats, although he fits more of the whole stereotype of the culture he's representing. I think it's Indian. Although I'm guilty of liking Zuri. Although if you said why you disliked her, I would not be able to defend her very much.
Well, it's no worse than me liking Lexi from Ant Farm.
True. But back to Launchpad, and the only other time where he says something that's arguably reverse snobbish, and definitely in my opinion wasn't reverse snobbish, but where I could see where people would think it's reverse snobbish is that episode where he's talking bad about this TV star that the boys are looking up to, and you'd know if Webby was there, she'd be the one kid with the brain that could see right through him.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I could see somebody arguing that he was a bit of a reverse snob there, but I highly doubt that he was looking down on the TV star because of his money and fame.
It was more the fact that he was definitely cocky, and and later on almost got them killed.
But yeah, to me, that minor line about Scrooge being able to get away with wearing a weird outfit because he's rich, and that episode where he arguably looks down on the TV star, don't make him a reverse snob.
Heck, I'd say that people in real life are more reverse snobs than Launchpad ever was, considering people will deny that celebrities still have their trouble. Well, it's because they're famous, or they're struggling with paparazzi, or people just going out to make them look bad. And they're saying, you wanted to be famous, so here's the price you pay.
Yeah, there are a lot of people in real life that either assume that that celebrities don't have any problems, or
that they fit the whole Kardashian or Paris Hilton's and thing.
Yeah.
But there are definitely celebrities that do have their struggles and are still real people, because people are people first, and whatever their career they have second.
Mm-hmm.
Like Demi Lovato had to struggle with depression and having an eating disorder to where she had to go to rehab. Have found out she was bipolar, and actually was cutting herself for a long time. And now looking back at Sunny with a Chance and Camp Rock, I'm thinking, my gosh, she was so unhealthy when you look at her now.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of her back then, and she always looked unhealthy to me.
Yep, and now you know why. or like with another one of my favorite celebrities, Bella Thorne, who, like I said in the video that never got up, she struggled with dyslexia and was bullied for that, and was bullied because it could also speak Spanish along with English, but eventually dropped speaking Spanish when she was young, because people kept on making fun of her for talking weird. Although now it would have been useful for college or high school, since they require you to have a language, and you know how hard it is to learn a language.
I ended up taking French in high school.
I took Spanish. And thankfully I was not as bad at it as Lucy Ricardo. But anyway, and she also had to struggle with finances and had to go on food stamps before she became famous, and she lost her dad when she was about 10, 11 years old in a motorcycle accident, which gave her a fear of driving, because she was afraid of not only just losing her life, but of taking away someone else's life and having their family go through the same thing that she went through. So celebrities do have their own problems. And I think people who say Launchpad is a reverse snob are very likely hypocrites.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I guess that's about all we have to say about these.
Yep. And just so we're clear, we're not saying that you can't dislike a character or for your own reasons, but they definitely have to be at least reasonable reasons. Like, I can understand the whole annoying or boring thing because it's very subjective and in the eye of the beholder. Or like with some characters, I can understand why they dislike them, like how I like Zuri, but I can understand why Sarah dislikes her.
Or like me liking Lexi and Chris disliking her.
The it goes on. And we've even done videos on characters that we both that one of us likes and the other dislikes. And sometimes it's helped us like the characters better, like with how I used to hate Candice Lynn, but now I like her, and how she used to dislike Rapunzel and now she's neutral.
She's grown on me a little bit.
And Anastasia's apparently growing on you slightly.
Yeah.
Definitely more than Dimitri or Merida. But I think people need to not make up very weak complaints just to dislike a character, and should take things into account, like with the character, and not say they're promoting their bad traits or whatever, and also try to understand them from a psychological point, like how I do with Anastasia Tremaine.
Yeah, I mean, if a character like Scrooge has too harsh a personality for you, I understand that. He's got a harsher personality than the average Disney hero. I'm not gonna fault you for disliking him for that, but to say that he promotes greed, that doesn't make any sense.
Now, when I hear people saying we don't need a reasonable reason to dislike the character, yes, you do, and even if they're just not your cup of tea, I can live with that.
Yeah.
But don't come up with very weak reasons. And so some people might think that we're being harsh with making videos about dumbest complaints, but in my opinion, I think it should promote people to try to come up with more reasonable explanations for why they dislike a character, and not just pull things out of their butts.
Definitely.
Anything you want to add before we sign off?
I think I've said everything I can.
So this is our conjoined account, and we will probably later put up videos on our own account saying, hey, for you to, of course, subscribe to this one.
Yeah.
And probably tomorrow, if we have the time, since tomorrow is my shortest class day, and I should get home fairly early, and if Sarah's not too busy with work, we might get up our next video and hopefully not have any problems next time.
Hopefully.
So please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Okay, bye and see you next time.
Bye.